Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Parsha. As I'm sure you recall, we are currently in the middle of reading the third book of Chumash, the book of Vayikra. Vayikra means he called. And for the whole book of Vayikra, I'm sorry, hang on. Hello? Hello, who is it? It's Hashem calling. Hashem, who are you calling for? Hashem is calling for Moshe. Hashem, I'm going to pass the phone to Moshe. I've got to get back to Parsha. I know, Hashem isn't really calling on my cell phone. But for the whole book of Vayikra, Hashem is calling Moshe to give instructions relating to the Mishkan that we just finished building at the end of the book of Shemot. The name of this week's Parsha is Emor. As you can probably hear from the sound of the word, Emor means say. And the Parsha is called Emor because it starts off with Hashem telling Moshe, hey, Moshe, I want you to Emor, I want you to say the following rules to the Kohanim, because the Kohanim who work in the Mishkan have a bunch of extra rules that they have to follow. One of the rules for the Kohanim is that the Kohanim are not allowed to be in the same room as a dead body, with the only exceptions being for the funerals of their own closest family members, like their parent or their child or their brother or their unmarried sister. The Kohanim have to stay pure and holy because they work for Hashem. A Kohen is not allowed to marry somebody who's divorced. And a Kohen only works in the Mishkan if their body is 100% whole. If they're injured in any way or their body is not 100% whole, they do still get paid with the food that's given to the Kohanim. They get to eat the Kohanim's food, but they don't do the work of the Mishkan. They might do other work instead. And speaking of the food for the Kohanim, people who eat the Kohanim's food are only allowed to eat that food when their body is 100% clean. If they touched a dead body or a bug or something like that, they have to wash off before they can eat that food. And even when their body is 100% clean, the food is only for Kohanim and people in the Kohanim's families who live with them. So if somebody who's not a Kohen accidentally eats the Kohanim's food, they have to actually pay back to the Mishkan, to the Kohanim, the cost of what they ate, plus an extra 1/5 of the cost, to apologize to Hashem for eating food that Hashem says is not for them. Now, just like a Kohen who works in the Mishkan has to have a body that's 100% whole, likewise, the animals that we give to Hashem in the Mishkan, you can only give Hashem an animal whose body is 100% whole. If the animal is injured in any way, that's not an appropriate gift to give to Hashem. And we also can only give to Hashem animals that are older than 8 days old. Any older is fine, but they can't be younger than 8 days old. And we can't give Hashem an animal and its parent or an animal and its child on the same day. That's not nice to the animals. The Parsha then gives us a reminder of Shabbat. Every 7 days, we've got our special day to rest. And then the Parsha goes through the entire Jewish calendar, starting with Pesach on the first month, aka the month of Nisan. On the 14th day in the evening, we give a special gift to Hashem, the Korban Pesach. And for 7 days, we don't have any chametz. And the beginning of the day at the beginning is a Yom Tov, the day at the end is a Yom Tov. And then the Torah also tells us something cool. It says in the second day of Pesach, we're going to take some of the new grain, like wheat or barley or oats that's growing in our fields, that just started growing because it's the spring, and we're going to wave it over the Mizbeach. And when we do that, two things happen. Number one, from that moment on, we're allowed to start eating foods made with this new grain that grew this year. Until then, we can only eat foods with flours that are made with the grain that grew last year. And number two, when we wave the new grain over the Mizbeach on the second day of Pesach, we're going to start counting. The Torah says we're going to count 7 weeks. Now, you get 7 days to a week times 7 weeks. What's your 7 times table? What's 7 times 7? That's 49 days. So we're counting up to the day after that. We're counting at 50 days. And this counting is called Surat HaOmer, which we are in the middle of right now. So I bet you know what we're counting up to. On the 50th day, at the end of Surat HaOmer, it will be the holiday of Shavuot, which is another Yom Tov. And for Shavuot, in addition to some animals that we bring to give to Hashem, we also bring 2 loaves of bread made from the new grain, from the new flour that just grew this year during the Omer. We bring 2 loaves of bread that we give to Hashem on the Mizbeach. And this is super exciting because Shavuot is the only time in the entire year that we're allowed to put something made with chametz on the Mizbeach. And while it's talking about, and we also for Shavuot, we bring the Bikurim, we bring a basket of our first fruits to Hashem. And while it's talking about the new grain and what grows in our fields for Shavuot, the Parsha reminds us that when we gather the food that grows in our fields, we're not allowed to gather up the food that grows in the edges. And if we drop anything, we're not allowed to go back and pick it up, because all of that we leave for the poor people who don't have their own fields to grow their own food, so everybody will have food to eat. The Parsha continues going through the year with Rosh Hashanah in the 7th month, the month of Tishrei. On the first day, we have a Yom Tov and we blow the shofar. And then we've got Yom Kippur in the 7th month and the 10th day, where it's also a Yom Tov and we fast, we don't eat or drink. And that's our special day to make up for anything we did wrong, to apologize to Hashem and start clean. It goes from the evening to the evening. And then Sukkot on the 15th day of that month, where for 7 days, we live in sukkahs to remember how we lived in sukkahs when we left Egypt and traveled through the desert. We've got a Yom Tov at the beginning. And then in the 8th day, we have a Yom Tov of a new holiday, Shmini Atzeret. And on Sukkot, the Torah tells us we're going to take our Arba Minim, we're going to take the Etrog and the Lulav and the Hadass and the Arava, and we're going to use them to celebrate with Hashem while we live in sukkahs for 7 days. The Parsha continues with another reminder for the Kohanim that the menorah in the Mishkan has to stay always lit. It's always on, and we have to use only pure olive oil to light that menorah. And also, we learn that the table, the shulchan in the Mishkan, we should always have 12 loaves of bread on the table that we bake fresh. We put new fresh bread on every Friday. So all week there'll be fresh bread for the Kohanim. The Parsha ends with a fight. There's 2 guys fighting. One guy, actually his mother's Jewish, his father was Egyptian, and another guy is a Jewish guy from the Shevet of Dan, and they're fighting. And then the first guy, the guy with the Egyptian father, curses Hashem's name. And everyone's like, oh my God, he just did such a bad thing. We don't even know what we should do for that. So they put him in jail while Moshe asks Hashem, what do we do? And Hashem's like, okay, I'm going to give you guys like a whole list of like punishments for different actions that people might do wrong, so you'll know for next time. And here's the rule if somebody curses Hashem's name. And here's the rule if somebody kills someone. Both of those have capital punishment. And here's the rule for if somebody injures someone, they have to pay the full value of the injury that they did. And if somebody kills someone's animal, they have to pay back the full value of the animal. And Hashem's like, let's be very clear. We've got the same rule for everybody. Everybody is treated equally by the law. So we learn the rules and then we carry out the rule and carry out the punishment for the guy who did something wrong in this situation. And that is the end of Parshat Emor. Shabbat Shalom.